It's a little bit early for July. We're filming this 25th June. It so happens that Homemakers is close to Glastonbury Festival, and Edward, who's filming, is down for that, and then he'll be at the festival, so we can't film while that's happening. You'd hear a lot of drum beat noise as well, and bass. And also I'm going to be in the United States. Actually, I'm giving a talk at the Midwest Fest in Iowa. So for that reason, we're just a few days early, but what you're seeing is just coming into the last week of June, and I'm using what's in the garden here to give you some prompts for jobs that you can do in July, which is a fast moving month. Like here, not long ago, we had completely different plantings. We had cabbage and beetroot and fennel and spinach, and they've all finished in the last 3 weeks. And as soon as plantings finish, I take the opportunity to pop in new ones. So there's some ridge cucumber. You could still plant cucumber right in the early July. Don't hang around if you've got transplants particularly. Beetroot, everything raised from transplants like multi-sown beetroot. They've been in the ground for about 10 days there. And then here is carrots. They're just coming up. Carrots have been a real drama this year because of slugs, and I've suffered like many of you have, but my garden is more open than many, so I'm fortunate in that respect. Also, I don't have wooden sides and so on, so I'm always looking to keep habitat to a minimum. And you know, when you see the first carrots like that, you just hope that nothing's going to eat them because they're so vulnerable, but there's not much slug habitat here, so I'm pretty sure they'll be okay. Whereas the onions are not looking good, and this leads on to one big job in July actually is harvest. So a lot of plantings like we've already seen, and then having plants ready. These onions though, they're going to harvest a bit earlier than I would have liked because they got this horrible disease. It's one of my least favourite diseases. It's downy mildew. That's not the same as powdery mildew, and you see these dark spots. It's all about grey and not even bright and cheerful like powdery mildew. And you see the leaves start to go sort of dark and grey, and then they go yellow. Basically the goodness is being sucked out of them. And if it gets down into the neck of the onion, that means that the onion will rot and won't store. So I'm thinking to harvest these like tomorrow even, and just fold over the tops, bend over the tops. So you would do that, bend the top. You know, this is one way to harvest onions, even when they're not fully mature. But actually, that's not too bad. Just smaller than it would have been. But having said that, I'm also thinking ahead, and I've got kale there. So this kale went in about 10 days ago. Needs a bit of water actually. We're very dry, and a lot of this we have been watering as and when. Like top times to water is when you put in new plants like there, or new sowings, make sure it's wet, and then just make sure they got going. Then the second big time is when plants are cropping, like the peas on the end that we saw there. They're ready for water, and these potatoes, I haven't watered them much, but I could have watered a bit more, and they're cropping now. So in July you're going to have potato harvests big time, I hope. You know, in this humid weather, late blight could be a factor, so that's something to think about. Like this is no dig Casablanca. It's not a huge harvest, but it's actually it makes very nice sized potatoes, the Casablanca. You can see there. Yeah, actually more than I thought. By the time we add these up, we're getting at the moment just over a kilo, heading up for 1.5 actually now. In fact, this is definitely croaky. This is like, wow. So all of that from one plant, that probably is about 1.5 kilos, 3 pounds. And yeah, always with potatoes when you're harvesting, with no dig you can see you don't need to fork. The surface is soft, but because the surface below is firm, not hard, the roots can go down, but it's firm, and that means that the tubers, the potatoes, actually don't go down too far. They're quite easy to scoop out or pull out. And I did use a bit of grass mulch to keep the light off, and it has worked. I was worried about slugs, so thanks for people who've been suggesting that. That's just mown grass that, you know, you could put like on top of your potato like that. We used a bit of extra compost too. And then the classic planting that follows potatoes is leeks like there. So that's multi-sown leeks. If you haven't thought about that already, it's probably too late, I'm afraid, but you need to sow them by early May. Those are actually sown in early April, multi-sown in modules and potted on, it's called, so popping them into pots of compost to keep them growing. And that's one way of keeping transplants going if you're not ready in the ground for them. Whereas something like lettuce, you can see we're putting in very small, and these went in just 2 days ago, and even yesterday actually, because this was carrots, and so the carrot harvest finished. I did it all in one go and popped in the lettuce. Then we got some celery, which is going to finish. This is one of the vegetables that needs the most water. If you have any dry weather and you're growing celery, just give it some water. You'll notice the difference because the stalks are not stringy so much. They always are a bit, but you'll get more tender stalks. Anyway, this will finish, say, in 3 weeks. So just today, using my long handle dibber, I just made little holes here, 8 little holes along a 5 foot, 1.5 meter wide bed, and popped in French bean seeds, dwarf French beans. You could still sow in the first week of July, don't wait any longer. These timings are for temperate maritime, zone 8. If you're in hotter climates, or even say Texas, which is also zone 8, oddly enough, you want to wait a bit and not sow in the high heat of summer. But there is still, I would take every opportunity you can to get new sowings made and new plantings ready. Maybe use some shade in your propagating area to make the most of the remainder of the growing season. We're only halfway, we're not even halfway even. Garlic harvest has happened, as you can see. If you've still got garlic in the ground, don't delay. Just one exception to that is hardneck, and particularly if it doesn't have rust. We had a lot of rust, and you can still see it on these leaves, these horrible orange spots. I put this on the compost heap. Some people say you shouldn't. I just compost everything. Okay, I've got a hot compost, that's true, but I believe that these diseases are so plant specific, like the onion mildew, you know, and it depends on weather. It's not whether you've got it around, it just arrives. But that's the difference with garlic, where it's been undercover and didn't get rust so much, you know, compared to outside. And this is what happens if you leave your garlic in the ground too long. The outer skin starts to decay, and then you see the bulbs. Now, that's not the end of the world, but if you go on from there, you're going to get a very muddy garlic bulb. Doesn't look so nice, maybe won't store quite so well. This is one of the big jobs for July. It's a chance to make loads of compost. We've been doing a lot in June already, and hopefully you have, but you know, scrounge from your neighbours, whatever. My neighbour over there, he's contributed about 7 wheelbarrowfuls of thistles and weeds to this heap, and in my case I know it's going to get hot. In fact, this thermometer wow, that's probably what that's in is about 10 days old edition, and it's reading 65 degrees centigrade. That's 140 degrees Fahrenheit roughly. It's certainly hot enough to kill weed seeds, but actually I'm happy to see it there and not hotter. You don't really want to go too hot, but this heat was only started on 29th of May, and it's now 25th of June, so we're probably going to keep adding to it for about another week. I'm going to show you quite a bit about compost making. Actually, it's so relevant to the season, and it's a prelude to my new book actually, which is coming out in September, because I've noticed so much interest in compost. This is a heap that we made in October, and you can see it's, you know, looking quite beautiful now. Having said that, you know, there's still bits, and I think some people might think, oh, you know, I need to get my compost fully decomposed, but actually that's fine. This is how I put it on, and actually that it gives food for soil fungi and other organisms in the soil, so don't think it has to all look perfect. We don't sieve it at all. We sieve wood chip before putting it in here, but that's slightly different, and that's more finished compost that's 9 months old. We're not spreading it because it's summer and there's nowhere to put it, so I'm stockpiling in here compost that's ready, and this whole structure has a roof on, which is very handy because you don't really want too much rain getting into finished compost. It doesn't matter while you're making a heap, but be careful of that. And these little devices, going from the one extreme of that giant heaps, which for most medium-sized gardens or allotments wouldn't be necessary, you know, these work really well, and that's 330 litres with about 70 gallons. That was filled between December and April, and if I put this nifty little tool, compost aerator, if I pop this down, so you corkscrew it down, you'll get close to the bottom, which is not too difficult. Then it depends how heavy or dense your heap is. You can lift it up and see what was in there. And I don't know what that is. So something quite light colour, looks almost like not soil but slightly fungal. This is quite wet actually. You can see some worms there. The worms quite like it wet. This is reflecting the weather we've had back in the winter and spring. December to April it was just raining every day pretty much, and that means things that go in there were wet. And you do, even with a lid on, which I'll definitely keep on, the compost will be, it's okay, but it's on the wet side, and water excludes air. That's one reason for keeping the excess rain out of a compost heap. There's a very nice little thing here which again demonstrating interplanting. So interplanting is where you have some plants ready and you haven't got anywhere to put them. This happens a lot in July. It's like the beds are all full. So I've been doing this one for a few years, this combination, where this was all carrots. Amazingly, they came up sown on the 4th of April, and I did thin them even. And then 2 weeks ago harvested enough carrots to make a space to pop in that Brussels sprout transplant. So that was sown on the 8th of May, popped in there at about 5 weeks old. And what you just keep doing is harvesting carrots that are sort of close by. That's not a bit fork one. We've got a good selection of carrot shapes here, but mostly they're quite nice. So these carrots are not even 3 months old, which is totally fine, and they're delicious actually. So you've got one harvest ongoing while you've got the new growth starting. And you know, in my experience of doing this, plants quite like it. You might think at first that, because when you first put them in, the carrot leaves are doing that a bit on top of the Brussels plant, but it's companionship. You know, this is a kind of companion planting in terms of proximity. These little brassica plants, when you first put them in, they're on a wide spacing because they're going to grow very big. So if there's nothing between them, they're sort of saying, hello little mate over there. You know, they as long as you manage it, you've got to manage it and keep harvesting these carrots. And probably in about 3 weeks, the last carrots will come out. And by then, all being well, we are watering the Brussels because they need a lot of moisture. They will be growing big. And the cover here is it's called a mesh, but it's softer actually than normal plastic mesh, and it's made from plant matter. It's on my crocus page, which I'll put a link to in the description. So it costs more, you know, like so many eco solutions. What I'm interested by, and I don't know yet, is how long it will last, but the manufacturers say 3 years. So that would be okay. It's working very well, put it that way. And then just up here, the compost bay pallet system. This is sort of intermediate size, so you can see videos we've made of these, like 4 heaps in 3 bays for this one, because you only ever fill the 2 outer bays. This is a good size for most medium-sized gardens or full-size allotments, that kind of thing. If you can manage to fill one of these enclosures, which is 1.1 metres square, just over 4 foot, just under 4 foot, within say 2 to 3 months, and then stop. So you don't have a heap that you just keep adding dribbles to forever kind of thing. Stop adding, and then it will sink quite a lot. And meanwhile you're adding, that's the current one, we've been adding for about 5 days. And then that will go on for another 2 months. And then, wow, they're all full, because this one has received the turn contents. Turning means moving basically, so you move it from there to there, that turns it, lets in some air, it improves in quality, and it's all protected by the corrugated iron, which keeps the rain out of the finished maturing heaps and not worrying about the current heap, which can take some rain. But that's really nice compost there. And so again, I'll need to store it, empty out that bay and put that somewhere, because we're not ready to put it on the ground yet. Usually start spreading compost in October, last plantings finish. And here's a very nice example of an early planting. And this principle can take you right through. So it's multi-sowing. This was thick bed of beetroot, and most of it I've harvested. But I've also been tidying the leaves a bit, and that enables us to see what's left. And when you harvest a multi-sown from a multi-sown, like there's an example, you've got one one tiddler. But basically you've got a bigger one and a littler one. And what you do is if you just rotate like that, maybe hold that one, then this beetroot comes out nicely, leaving that one, and then you've got a succession harvest later when that one swells up. So this bed has been giving beetroot for about a month, and they've been so welcome. It's been fantastic, and it's going to finish probably in about a week's time. And the plan here, I've got in the greenhouse plants already, but you could still sow things like Savoy cabbage. It's the only type of cabbage I'd sow in early July, and broccoli for winter and spring, like purple sprouting broccoli. There's one called Sante that crops sort of January, February, and then there's one called Claret that crops March, April. So check the small print on the seed catalogue of what you've got and when they're going to crop. Helps to know that before you start. And with summer brassicas and many transplants you make in July, it's really good to have awareness of what might eat them. Pests can just, you can do everything right and you get a pest and you lose it all. So I'm very wary. I'm probably over cautious, but I've learnt the hard way. This is lettuce under here. This is a mesh called Thermocrop, and you can see there, these went in just about 5 days ago. Looking strong now, but you can see also the bindweed. I mean, this is another job for July. Weeds, and in the warmth, this bindweed, it's always just coming in from the air, so I put a trowel and lever out the new roots as much as I can. And fortunately, in the middle of the bed, there isn't too much. That's looking good, actually. And what I'm concerned about here is rabbits, because they do like, rabbits in particular, like little plants, little lettuce, spinach, little onions even. So be careful of that one. Having said that, recently the rabbits have diminished here. I've seen fewer. Maybe Minty the cat is, I've seen her with one or two, and foxes. So we might be okay for a while. If I thought that, I would take a cover off. I don't like leaving covers on more than necessary. This is a very handy one though. It's mesh, and I prefer it actually to that because the plant is more visible. And there's a real bonus to that. Like, you can actually see what's going on. You can spot potential problems or weeds, even, that kind of thing. And so just bog standard mesh. So that's this is plastic mesh compared to the plant matter one we saw before. Just one last one there is a different kind of cover. Just beyond this one is the bird netting. So that's bog standard polypropylene 1/2 inch square 12mm bird netting, which is in this case again for rabbits because they love chard. Potentially deer as well, actually. I've used it against deer. We do get deer in here sometimes, and if you put some of that over, it's just a quick way to solve that problem. Polytunnel plants, I'm just going to show you, I'm not proud of. My tomatoes are not looking good, and I think it's mainly to do with the incredible weather we've had, which, although nice as it is now, you can see by my clothes, it's 25 degrees, high 70s today. But we've had little sun, and we had a spell of really cold nights. Like, even in here, it was 5 degrees, 40 Fahrenheit, for about 7 nights out of 9. And these plants did not like it. So they're hesitating. That's all I can say. And actually, a week ago, you'd have been shocked. I think they've really recovered in the recent just few days of warmth. The top of the plants look better, the bottoms look awful with not much fruit developing. That's it. Something else I'm noticing this year, I'm not seeing much fruit. This is Sungold here, and yeah, actually that's not bad. That's the bottom truss, and you can see I've actually cut it off, and I'll even take that one out, disproportionately smaller. But you can see how if I'd left the truss full length, the bottom ones would be dropping on the soil. So that's one reason for doing that. And the de-leafing is good actually, because when you de-leaf, and I just do it like that with Sungold, it snaps off quite easily. This leaf is okay. It's got a lot of this leaf roll. I know that most of us have that. Night and day temperature difference. There could be other factors as well. Many theories about that. I guess I'm so busy. I'm just not putting quite enough time into these tomatoes. Tomatoes are a plant that really repays a lot of care and attention. So I'm sorry, guys, but I prepare the soil with compost, hope for good weather, and let them get on with it. It could still come good. But it is kind of interesting how on that side there, the melons are looking quite strong. They're not as good as in the greenhouse, as we'll see in a minute, but because it's warmer in there. But that's okay. So with your if you've got melons under cover in July, you want to keep pruning them. All of these, you know, keep side shooting. It becomes quite a big job as these plants get bigger. You've got more plants to look after. And I always feel with tomatoes actually that there's a lot of time needed. Sometimes in the climate like this, which is not hot sometimes in summer, we don't get a huge harvest. And then there's always the risk of late blight on outside tomatoes. I'm sorry if I'm sounding a bit down, but I feel it's quite good sometimes just to put the downs as well as the ups. Like these cucumber plants, again, I couldn't believe it. A week ago, there's a lot of this going on. This is not normal to me anyway. I'm pretty sure that is cold-related damage, the leaf kind of losing its edge almost. So then you look at the new leaves, and this is what I would call normal and healthy. And yeah, where are the fruits? Well, there they are. There's the first one. Actually, you know what? This one I'm going to take off because that I stop them until they get to about here because these are big cordon cucumbers, and unless you've got a big plant, they're not going to develop as they might. So I think we'll be cropping by early July, which is about 2 weeks later than normal. Well, I'm hoping actually, because the weather outlook's not brilliant. I have to share that with you in terms of temperature. So we're making the most of this nice warmth now. But we're going to have a quick look to finish in the greenhouse, and these bottom panels I keep in just so I don't need to shut the doors always, and they keep out the pests. So yeah, when you see the melons in here, you're going to notice the temperature difference. They're blowing me away actually. They were sown at the same time as we saw in the polytunnel. This is 25th June. These would have been sown back 29th of March. Right at the end of March, transplanted there early May. They just got away. So it's gratifying when something like that works. Again though, the tomatoes, don't know what to say about this one. 'Cause this is some seed I saved from Burner Rose last year, and whether I mislabeled it, I don't know, but to me it looks very different. And I've occasionally had that with homemade seed. I must say, you know, you can make a mistake. But maybe they'll come good. At the moment they've got fantastic leaves and not much fruit again. And then all this propagation going on. So, you know, that if you've got a propagating area, there's a lot you can fill it with in July, because a lot of plantings are going to finish, you know, like the peas and broad beans, for example, beetroot, carrots, spring onions, lettuce. Long list of early harvests and summer harvests, which is what we want. And then the plants, they're gone. So what are you going to put in? So good examples like that we've still got now is beetroot. Until the first week of July, you can still sow beetroot either direct, or this works really well, multi-sowing modules. Just small trays, these are the ones I designed. And then we prick out cabbage, but you could sow 2 seasons into one of things like the Savoy cabbage in the first week of July. And then as we go into the second week of July, there's a chance to sow things like fennel and kohlrabi for autumn harvest going into late September, mainly October, November. You know, really keep your beds full of potential harvests and don't neglect the autumn. And if your plantings, if your little transplants are ready before the ground is ready, you can either interplant like we saw, or pot on. So this is 7 centimetre, just under 3-inch pot. I'm using half homemade compost, half peat free, and popping it in there. And so you can move one of these very quickly into one of those, make a little hole, pop it in. That's called potting on. And that way you've got the plants ready at any time you've got the space. And I have a very simple rule as to how many new sowings I make, and it's to make more than I think I can use, because it's always amazing how actually you can find space using the principles I showed you. With no dig, it's quick. You haven't got much preparation time, so you can just pop them in. You don't need to follow a 4-year rotation. I've got a very nice example at the moment of potatoes growing 10th year in the same place. We'll see that in a subsequent video. And you will always lose a few transplants. So, you know, just all those things together, grow more plants than you think you'll need. And I hope you've enjoyed having a good look at the possibilities of July. It's an amazing month. Just do your best to keep up with the pace of growth.